Hello and welcome back, goats, to the BigBluePurple channel. Today is July 16th, which means the Arcadion, our new raid tier, has officially released. I went ahead and did all of these fights blind in the duty finder, and I wanted to make this video basically immediately after to give my first impressions. I've only done these fights once each, so I'm just going to go through each of the fights, talk about what I liked about them, talk about what I'm looking forward to in Savage, and things of that nature. And this goes without saying, but full spoilers ahead for the 4 new raid fights that released. So let's get straight into it, starting off with our first fight of the tier against Black Cat. And man, right away, I just want to say the OST that plays in this fight sounds like something straight out of Persona 5. I think everyone had the same gut reaction when we initially heard that song. You see someone in chat said it right away. And I swear, like, that was a universal experience for anyone who's played Persona or heard the music. Like, this song sounds like a Persona 5 song. I really like the theme they went for with these raids this time around, this kind of tournament arc setting where we're just going into the Arcadion and we're fighting other strong dudes. I saw a comment on one of the OSTs earlier that said we're never beating the FGC retirement home allegations, and I thought that was pretty funny. But hey, if you're like me and you love fighting games, you're probably gonna love this fucking raid tier because it is really damn cool. Also, I want to say this fight had one of the greatest, like, fake out first impressions for me, because, like, right away, the boss starts by doing, like, these super simple left-right cleaves and, like, a bunch of stuff we've seen a million times if you've been playing this game for a while. And so I was like, okay, like, we're kind of going the Asphodelos route here. We're making, like, very approachable encounters to help new players ease into the raiding. And then all of a sudden, the boss starts deleting tiles off the floor. Of course, my dumbass has the habit of dodging into AoEs after they go off, so as you can see, I walked straight off the stage. It was at this moment where I nodded my head and I realized, yep, this is going to be a very solid first fight. A really interesting mechanic this boss has is this kind of knockback line thing she puts on you, where you need to get knocked back onto another platform, but the platform that she's knocking you to is going to get damaged. So if it's already cracked, you know, it's going to break and you're just going to die. I'm really curious to see how this mechanic works in Savage, how many players are going to get targeted at a time, and just like what they stack on top of this, because I really like the idea of having like this line that knocks you back. This is a great instance of 14 taking a mechanic we know and love, knockbacks, right, and falling off the platform, things that have been around forever, and takes a new spin on them, adds a new marker to it that we've never seen before, and just it makes it feel new even if it kind of isn't. I'm extremely happy to see that they've continued the patterns from the initial expansion launch of making new content that feels fresh, feels new, feels creative. It seems like that's really what they were focusing on with Dawn Trail, and they're doing a hell of a good job with it. I was extremely pleasantly surprised by how much of a step up this kind of feels for a normal raid, especially the first fight of the entire tier. It's not the most mind-blowing difficult fight you've ever done in your life or something like that, but it's certainly got some new things that can be hard to figure out initially, and I died multiple times on my first time through this because I was greeting uptime, I was trying to do shit I couldn't do, I walked off the stage because I'm a dumbass. There are so many ways to get yourself killed in this fight, and I actually think that's really good, especially in the first fight like this. The boss also adds this nice little twist to your typical like line AoE dodges of in and out, because the boss will actually move, as you're seeing here, to a targeted spot and then do the attack. It's kind of similar to EX2 if you've done that, where like Zoralja will like jump back and then you have to be standing behind his hitbox. It's kind of similar to that, but a little bit easier to read, and I think it's a good way to freshen up those like left-right, like in-out mechanics that we see so often. And at the end of the day, right, there's a reason we see those in-out dodges so much. It's because they feel good to do, and they're also not incredibly difficult to do. So it just lets everyone feel like a badass while they're playing the game. There's a reason we see these so often. But essentially my verdict on this fight is I really love the way they take like these simple in-out dodges. They use the stuff that needs to be introduced in like the first tier of Savage to teach people how to raid. But then on top of that, right, they drop this crazy like destroying platforms section on you, having a limited arena and limited space. This is going to be really interesting as a first Savage fight. If you're someone who's coming into this tier for the first time, brand new to Savage, I have a feeling this fight is going to teach you a lot you need to know about this game. Obviously, there's no guarantees, and there is instances where the Savage fight ends up not really living up to the expectations of the normal mode, if you get what I mean. I think specifically of like P6S or P7S. Those fights were really cool on normal and kind of got my hopes up, and then when they came out on Savage, they just weren't that fun to do. That being said though, I have a feeling they really took a lot of the criticism from the Endwalker raids to heart, and they applied that stuff here. Specifically, the one that stood out to me the most this entire tier was the fact that every single boss gets their own OST. Gone are the days of Asphodelos, the same boring ass song for 3 fights in a row. Nah, every boss has a theme, and every theme is a banger. I'm so happy that they did this. Moving on though, onto our second fight against Honeybee Lovely. Man, in the Duty Finder, this one was pure chaos. We had to heal LB at one point during the fight, and then by the end of the fight, we had heal LB3 back again because of how many fucking deaths we had. It was unreal. And that's what I want out of my day 1 blind normal raid experience. I want people to be dropping like flies. I want to die to mechanics. That's the point. Now, interestingly, the arena here has this kind of pizza slice segmentation going on. So I think on Savage, that's going to be incredibly relevant. It's not very relevant in normal mode, at least from what I could tell. But I bet on Savage, it is going to be super crucial why those lines are on the floor. The main gimmick for this fight are these like heart gauges that appear above everyone's head. And the way these work is if they fill up, you'll get charmed and you won't be able to move for like, 10 seconds-ish. After she gives everyone these gauges, so she'll start putting out mechanics that need to be resolved by filling up these heart bars. For example, this spread marker is going to fill one of your hearts no matter what you do. Obviously you don't want to overlap them or you're going to fill 2 hearts. And then right after that, you see there's going to be meteor towers that spawn, and you're going to want to soak those. But again, the condition here is that you cannot go to 3 hearts. So when another set of meteor towers spawn, for instance, it has to be the people with 1 heart who soaks them and not 2. As you can see here, I stood in the mechanic and got hit, and then I got hit again, and then that's what the charm there actually looks like. To be honest with you, I don't know how I got hit that first time. I must have just not been looking at the screen or something. I'm stupid as hell. My own dumbass gameplay aside though, I really like this super hectic phase that goes on here, where it's just a bunch of these hearts going around, you gotta move around and dodge them. Again, I kind of compare this stuff to Zermis, because I felt like in Zermis there was a lot of dodgy, move around, use your eyes type of mechanics, and I really like that they keep bringing these back, because just fast-paced moving around mechanics feel good to do. Unless you're like a black mage, of course. Otherwise, she has this Mario Kart type mechanic where she'll spawn all these bees on the outside of the arena, and then they'll all dash through in a sequence in the order that they spawned. So it's literally just a simple Mario Kart. We've seen this a lot before, but again, dodges like this always feel super satisfying, especially as a melee DPS where you're just holding uptime, you keep hitting the boss. Such a good feeling. Overall though, I'm a very big fan of this heart mechanic they introduced. It's a brand new gauge, it feels completely fresh and unlike anything we've done before, and I'm super curious to see how they go about hearts in Savage and how important it's going to be to manage them and whatnot. Overall, I don't really know if it was the fight itself or if I just had a scuffed run when I did it, but this one for sure felt like probably the most difficult out of the 4 fights introduced this tier, and I think that's really surprising given that this is only the second fight. That being said, again, these are literally day 1 first impressions. I've only done these fights once each. There's a perfect chance I could just queue up for this fight again and have a completely different experience with it where we wash it and no one dies, right? I don't really know. But my gut initial reaction is that this one feels the most difficult to do. It feels like there's the most stuff going on in this fight to keep track of and constantly be moving around and dodging like you're seeing here. So yeah, I think this is probably the hardest of the normal fights this expansion, and I think it's also an incredibly good normal fight. A lot of the kind of creative mechanics present here are reminiscent of the Omega raids in Stormblood to me, where a lot of those fights tried completely new and weird ideas that honestly end up being really fun, and I think that's why those Omega raids stand out a lot to a lot of people. Ultimately though, I'd have to replay this one a couple times to really say for sure, but as it stands now, I would definitely say this is my second favorite fight out of this tier. I think it's really cool and really interesting. Moving on to the third fight against the Brute Bomber though, and by the way, this guy's design is fucking badass. I absolutely love this dude's design. I kind of had the opposite experience with this fight to the previous one, where I felt this fight was extremely intuitive and I had a pretty easy time catching onto the mechanics right away. It could have also been that I just had a really good party this time around though, because I felt like the boss died really quickly and that we probably didn't see every single mechanic potentially, so I'm not entirely sure. He has this kind of left-right brutal lariat mechanic that covers a bunch of the screen. I'm really curious to see what that does in Savage, because in normal, it really feels like a super simple left-right, no harder than any of the left-rights in the previous 2 fights. So to me, I'm thinking they're going to add something on top of this in Savage that really makes it stand out specifically. Otherwise, he has like this green poison attack, which is just a cone in front of him. You just stand behind him. You know, I imagine on Savage, he'll probably be able to do that at the same time as he's doing the Brutal Lariat, potentially, and then the save spot's going to be really small. I'm not entirely sure. There's these interesting kind of like knockback towers where you need to soak them, and then you eat a big knockback after you soak it. I'm not entirely sure what they're going to do with these in Savage, but I assume it's going to be pretty interesting because in the normal mode, they really do just feel like kind of regular tower soaks. You just have to stand, you know, so you don't get knocked off the stage. He also has this mechanic where he'll spawn a bunch of bombs, and some of them will have short fuses, and some of them will have long fuses. This is one of those really, really simple dodges where you stand on one with a long fuse and then dodge into one with a short fuse after it goes off. I feel like we've seen these type of mechanics so many times. I think specifically of the Stormblood Alliance raids where they put the clock markers on the floor, and then you have to stand on the slow clocks and then move to the fast clock. We've seen that type of stuff before. I do love the little characterization of this guy where the referee comes in and tells him he's breaking the rules, so he just fucking punches him out of the ring and keeps fighting us. I do love that little characterization of the boss. It's pretty fucking raw. I'm honestly just a huge fan of this guy's design, and I hope his Savage fight is super sick, because honestly, of the 4 normal fights this expansion, I definitely felt the least excitement about this one, because again, the mechanics he does feel very similar to stuff that I've done before a lot. He does eventually start to stack the Lariat mechanic with the short and long fuse mechanic, which I think is really cool. It just happened so late into the fight that he was already nearly dead by the time he started doing this. So again, that's something I'm looking forward to in Savage, where for the majority of the fight, he's going to be doing much more difficult shit. All in all, though, this is certainly the fight I'm the most lukewarm on in terms of normal mode. I definitely don't think it's bad, though. It just doesn't stand out to me as much as the other 3 fights, which I think stand out a shit ton. And speaking of standing out a shit ton, man, it is time to talk about the final fight of the tier, Wicked Thunder. Now, to put this into perspective for you guys, my kind of thoughts on the final tiers of almost every fight in Endwalker, except for Athena, and I'm talking about normal modes here, is they feel like they're supposed to be a door boss, and they feel like they're half a fight and they're missing mechanics. I think specifically of Hephaestus and Hesperos normal mode, and then, you know, eventually with Athena they went on to fix that and they made her normal mode feel very good despite being a door boss. This fight though, whether it's going to be a door boss in Savage or not, is a absolute banger of a final normal mode fight, and it feels complete regardless of if it's going to be a door boss or not. The music in this fight specifically is so godlike. It is my favorite theme that has come out of this entire expansion. I've been looping this shit all day since I fucking killed the boss. It's amazing. The boss arena in this fight too looks so damn cool. I mean, just look at it. After doing some pretty simple left-right lightning AoE dodges, she goes into this phase where she creates this massive fucking arm cannon on her hand. It looks badass as shit. And then she blows up the entire platform except for one side of it. I just want to say I love how much impact these blasts have. And you could see my dumbass gap closing as soon as she destroyed the platform. I had no idea that that platform was about to blow up. I am a dumbass. But hey, you could see the other Viper in my party did it too, so I'm not alone. Once she destroys the platform, she starts charging up her guns on different sides. You need to memorize which order they're going to go off in. This is kind of reminiscent of EF4S, if you've done that before, where Titan charges up his fists and you have to pay attention if he's double charging or single charging. It felt very similar to that, but an easier to read, like simpler to understand version of it for the normal mode. Also, I just want to say, this is another one of my favorite boss designs of the entire raid tier. This, like, Ixion fusion girl with this fucking huge arm cannon that shoots giant plasma bolts. It's really damn sick. And I'm really happy about that too, because, you know, going into the Arcadion, I genuinely had no idea what to expect with these bosses. I didn't know what route they were going to do to, like, make the bosses. I really like this idea of using the soul abilities to turn themselves into these giant bosses. I think that's a really cool setting for a tournament arc, and it's tons of fun. She has this kind of cool line AoE dodge where she dashes through the screen with her lightning wings and it does these lines. It's not hard to dodge, and it's something we've seen before, but it just has a unique tell that looks really visually satisfying to me. It also splits the arena into these like lightning segments that you have to dodge, and you have to pay attention to like which segments she's lighting up, and you have to obviously, you know, avoid standing in those. She also reintroduces the line AoEs found at the beginning of the fight, where she'll spawn these like clones of herself that cleave in the direction they're facing, so it creates this nice little Mario Kart dodge where you need to pay attention to each of the clones and not get hit, and as you can see there, I still got hit because I'm trash. Another cool little thing this boss does is the third time that she blows up the middle platform and comes over to one of the sides, she'll start throwing out these huge stack markers, which I don't think we've actually ever seen anything like this. They don't go off multiple times. She just holds a fucking Kamehameha on your ass for like 10-15 seconds straight. It's just a huge heal and mid check, and I think that's super damn cool. You know, we got all these healers going on this damn heal strike, and the devs are actually like, no, here's damage. Like, we're actually going to do damage to you now. You're actually going to have to press your buttons as a healer. And I really, really like that. Even in the normal modes, they're throwing out huge mid checks like this. Overall, though, I love this fight. I cannot wait to see what it looks like on Savage. I'm going to assume that it is a door boss because, you know, with the way this game has been going, I'm going to imagine that every final tier is just going to be a door boss from now on. Regardless, though, I have absolutely loved my experience with the normal mode raids this time, and I can confidently say that I was taken aback by how good they actually were. I was fully expecting something like Asphodelos again, where the fights take this kind of safe, very simple route to help newer players ease themselves into their first raid tier, but no, they said, fuck it, we ball, fuck it, we do mechanics, and I am so damn happy they did. And that's not to exaggerate too much, right? Like, these are still normal modes, right? You're probably not gonna wipe. Like, it's just, there's going to be mechanics that catch you off guard and get you killed, and that's exactly what I want in these fights. They've found more ways to actually get players to die. They're destroying platforms and letting people fall off the ledge more often, which I think is just hilarious. I love watching people fall off the edge. I laugh when I fall off the edge. It's one of the best things that this game has. So yeah, at this rate, if you can't tell, I'm incredibly optimistic about Savage. I have a feeling that we're going to have a really damn cool raid tier on our hands in 2 weeks. But I think that just about sums up my first impressions on the fights themselves, the kind of interesting mechanics they throw at you. You know, I love all the music they fucking have in this raid tier. I was actually genuinely surprised that all 4 fights have their own song. I really hope they continue to do this in the future tiers. You know, I know it takes work to produce all this music and to come up with unique songs, but it adds so much to these fights, man. It is so rough when 3 fights in a row have the same song, especially on Savage, dude, because, like, I'm just going to go into my sound settings and mute the music and turn my own music on. And I think being able to avoid that and having unique songs for each fight that, you know, you don't get sick of as much is a fantastic, fantastic idea. So please, Soken, keep up the great work. We all fucking love you. Otherwise, I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on the tier. Were you as excited and taken aback by it as I was, or did you just think it was kind of okay? You know, you're not as excited by it. What are you guys thinking, and what are your expectations for the Savage modes? Let me know. I would love to hear. Anyways, thank you all for tuning in. Remember to drop a like, but only if you did, and subscribe to the Big Blue Purple channel if you're not already. Thanks for watching, and I will catch you in the next one.